Yes, we are live.
Good.
Are we?
We're live? Okay.
Yes, yes.
I cannot see myself live on YouTube even now.
आएगा थोड़ा सा 3-4 सेकंड का लैग रहता है.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. मेरा भी not yet.
Should be here by now.
It's coming. Yeah, we are live.
Okay, cool. Hello everyone. Hello everyone in YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Today evening's session is on long exposures, and the idea behind long exposures and not going for a generalized topic like
Yeah, we are live.
could all of you mute your phones? Yeah.
Mine was down.
Yeah. So what is happening is we were having some technical issues. I think we have resolved that. So coming back to the point, why we chose long exposures and not a generalized topic like landscapes, because landscapes have so many variations and so many differences. So long exposures forms a part of the landscape photography genre, and the technical expertise, the better you become at long exposures, the better you start getting interesting images and stunning images. So we have with us today Sanak Choudhury, who is from Kolkata, and he is a senior clinical optometrist in Oman. He has been working in Oman for some time now, and in the Indian landscape photography scenario, he is one of the popular names, and he has won a lot of international and national awards. And he is one of those few guys who are easily accessible to anyone who would like to speak to him or like to learn from him. Then along with him, we have with us Subhadip has already covered the astro landscape section with Rajan. We have Subhadip is back with us today again. He is a person he is brought up in Shillong, a northeastern city in the state of Meghalaya in India. So he has been doing landscapes for almost 2 decades now. And he also has won quite a few awards, but really keeps a low profile. And again, just like Sanak, just like the others, a few others in my among my friends, he is accessible for a lot of knowledge sharing. He has helped a lot of people in and around Shillong and in and around Meghalaya grow as well in the scene of landscapes. So the two of them will be speaking with us, will be discussing with us today about different thoughts and techniques related to related to long exposures. So in the panelist we have with us, you can't see him right now, but he'll be visible in a short while. His video has turned off for some reason. We have Sayan Chakravarti. He is another person who has been in this landscape scenario for past around 8 to 10 years now. And he also has played an important role in my growth in the landscape field. So thank you all of you for joining me, for agreeing to come for this session and helping us learn a bit more about long exposures, to be precise. But when it comes to long exposures, it is not just about a 30 seconds exposure. It could be shorter than that, it could be longer than that. So let us see how we can understand long exposures better. But before that, I'll come to Subhadip da. Sanak bhai, आप थोड़ा बोलो अपने बारे में कि how did you get into this field of photography, and how did long exposures and particularly low light images attract you or inspire you?
Shall I begin or Subhadip?
No, Sanak. First Sanak, then we'll go to
Right.
Subhadip.
Yeah, because Shubhodip da is one of my inspirations. So Guru se pehle baat karna tha. Yeah, I will start. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, right. So I started my photography journey back in 2013. Precisely, yes, I bought my camera in 2013. But I was not at all. But I was not at all interested to shoot. After buying the camera, it was lying unused in the cupboard. As it happens, it was just by. I just wanted to gift myself fancy gear and with a big lens. The feeling was good, to have that feeling and to have that DSLR. The owner of the DSLR give me that pride. Basically, there was no interest to shoot, and eventually it started way after around 1 year. There was a competition in Muscat which was announced by Times of Oman, and eventually I won a prize in the Times of Oman contest. And I was approached by the Times of Oman the web editor, who called me in their office, and they were telling that they would like to feature more of my photographs because it has some nice compositions, and they liked the way that I was approaching my subjects. So that was a positive catalyst that really pushed me to start clicking eventually after. So, and then there was no looking back. Every weekend, I'm privileged to stay in such a country where the natural beauty is so virgin. There are sea, mountains, and deserts all together in one place. So every weekend, I used to go out with my camera, and I started to click whatever was coming on my way, whatever was nature was providing me. And yes, the place where I stay has a bigger influence on why I chose landscape photography as my genre, because it really influenced my way of thinking and definitely my way of shooting. So that was actually the positive factor of choosing landscape photography.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, like, how have you grown? Like, because right from first day itself, you do not become a landscape photographer. It is always a long and tiring and taxing process. So, uh, how long did it take you to master your skills to reach
See,
where you have
in
reached today?
in any form of art, there is no end of ending. There is no end. You This is a gradual learning curve, and I believe that you keep on learning every single day till your end. So this learning phase continues, and definitely with smallest of discussions with my elders, seniors, seeing photographs which have influenced me in Instagram and Facebook over the years, which I believe more than. I'm actually not a big reader. I am more of a visual person. I love to observe photographs in my spare time. In my spare time, and I do observe a lot of photographs that come on my way daily in this digital era. So of course, I watch a lot of photographs, and I read, and sometimes I do read about the thought processes that went about creating those photographs or from the authors. And that has given me, over the years, that has changed my perspective. And still I keep on learning, and I believe that it has no end. And you, of course, you have to learn to accept your mistakes. That's very important. You have to be resilient, you have to be patient, and of course you have to hear from your elders, or the stalwarts of your genre who are coming up to you to help you with your mistakes. These are very essential points in the initial days that one should always keep in mind if you want to grow as a good photographer, as a good landscaper.
Right. So, Sanak bhai, I would like to ask you, like, have you ever since you started got into photography? I don't think you have stuck to the same basic gear that you used to have. So, how has it how has it transitioned? What do you have in your bag now?
Right. This transition also cannot be so abrupt. It has to be very, very gradual. For example, suppose if someone wants to learn swimming, first thing you learn is paddling. After paddling, you learn the breathing technique. Then you learn your hand movement. Then at the end of all these sessions, you learn how to synchronize your hand with your paddling and breathing all together, and then you become a swimmer. So it has to go same way. So definitely, I will not suggest anyone to go or get diseased by this gas syndrome, which we call gear acquisition syndrome. Try to start with the very basic ones. I started with D5100, and eventually I shifted to D7K and then to the 800 series. So until and unless you don't know how to use the tool properly, there is no point of changing the gear abruptly. It has to be very, very gradual, very slow, and in a very justified way.
Right.
And right now I'm using D850 and a D4. Of course, I'm a Nikon user, and I have the 7200, 1530 Tamron, and 2470 Nikon lens.
Right. Okay, so let me go over to Subhadip.
Yeah, hello.
Subhadip,
Yes.
we have in the previous session we have already had a session with you where you have mentioned about your background, but for the benefit of the new people who have joined in, please take us through your photographic journey, like how it began, how you started, what do you have in your bag today, with what kind of gears that you started back when you started. So a little bit about your photographic journey, and specifically how did you get into landscapes?
See, I have been dabbling in photography since the film age. It's been quite a long time.
Right.
And being in Meghalaya, it's got vales, valleys, and streams, and waterfalls and all. One falls in love with nature. And this falling in love with nature led me to landscape photography.
Right.
That's part one.
Yeah.
And what happened, I had a set of like-minded friends. We were a group of friends. All of us more or less interested in photography as a pastime. And all of them were interested in landscapes. So having a common pool of friends together, like, led this interest more deep. So that is how. And slowly I figured out this is the thing I love.
Right. So, I just wanted to know, like, did you get into landscapes right from the word go itself, or like initially it was something else and then you transitioned?
I tried everything. I have shot portraits. The portraits are brilliant because there are there is 1.5 billion, some billions of people in the world, and everyone is unique.
Right.
So every portrait you take will turn out to be unique.
Right.
That is there. I have tried other things also, like everybody does. When you're starting out, you try out new things, you do new things, and slowly figure out where your core interest lies, what you love more. And I figured out that I love landscapes more than anything else. So I have brought down my focus. Over the years, my focus has narrowed down to landscapes.
Right.
I shoot travel also.
Right.
But later, like, I shoot when I'm out somewhere, I find a scene, I shoot, but then somehow that image does not come to life because I don't process it. But first interest goes towards landscapes. So the heart beats for landscapes. That is the thing.
Right. So, how did you begin? With what kind of equipment did you begin, and what equipment you are using today? What's in your bag today?
Let's start with the digital era. I jumped into the digital era in around 2006, I think.
Right.
I had 8 megapixel SLR. The DSLRs had just become affordable then, so could get one.
Right.
So initially it was I was clueless totally, but slowly figured things out.
Right.
And now I am using. I am still a dinosaur in terms of the camera equipment also. It is at least one generation old. I use a Canon 6D and a Canon 60D. Both are like dead by today's standards. but they serve my purpose, so I'm all okay with it. I'm not a professional. I'm just a hobbyist who loves to do this, and my equipment serves my purpose, so I'm okay with it. I've got a set of lenses covering from white to tele, so as
Right.
long as it serves my purpose, I'm okay with it.
Right. So, like, Sanak bhai, let's come back to you, and this is a question for. Okay, before I start asking my questions, Sayan, would you like to add something to your association with Sanak and Subhadipda, and would you like to ask some questions related to whatever they have mentioned till now?
Hi guys. Uh, I would keep the questions for some time later in the session. Uh, Talking about associations, I hope I'm audible. Am I?
Yes, you are. You are.
Like Shubhodipda, like I have known Shubhodipda for a much longer period of time than I've known Shanokda. But then at the present point of time, I share a very, very warm relationship with both of them, both being stalwarts in the kind of photography I love doing myself. Shubhodipda has tons of experience dating back to the film era, and he has carried forward all that information and experience onto the digital era. And the way he has transformed that is really very inspirational, because he has, what I've noticed about Shubhodipda is he has this unending energy and enthusiasm to learn a lot. Like he's never happy with knowing the amount of things he does today. And I've had very engaging conversations with Shubhodipda over time, and they have always been about knowing something that he doesn't know today, how to improve his images, how to improve the way he sees things. And he is absolutely an inspiration to me, and I believe most people shooting landscapes in our part of the country and elsewhere. Now, his expertise, I believe, according to me, is generally a very strong composition, which he disagrees with me. I don't know why, but I find his sense of composition very uh, very alluring to the eye, and maybe it touches my emotional and creative outflow in a very deep way, but I really like it. And he understands, because we're talking about long exposures today, he understands the natural blend of light with midtones and shadows really well, because natural light and artificial light works a little differently. Where I'll shift on to Shanokda, who is absolutely fabulous with whatever he does, I believe. And he's always experimenting. He is a guy who cannot stay silent with a camera. You see his profile, he'll come up with some new photograph every day, which will engage you and baffle you as to how he did that. He was introduced to me by, like, the common factor here is Noburunda again, I believe, because he was too introduced to me first by Noburunda. Like Noburunda had told me that, look at Sanak Choudhury, he is this guy I just found, like some time back, around 4-5 years back. And he is so fabulous with his pictures, and you should see how he does long exposures, especially highlights and artificial lights. And I personally call him.
May I interject?
Yeah, what?
May I interject for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
Sanak is our marketer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have to move out from these webinars.
No, like absolutely. I totally feel that I call him personally the king of twilight. That's what I call him, because I have seen a lot of pictures like that, but I generally have not seen anybody handle highlights so well. If you are in photography, you will understand that midtones are quite a good friend to you, but shadows and highlights are not. And the way this man understands highlights, especially when it deals with artificial lights, it's mind-blowing. Like I cannot get the hang of how he does it, but I hope in the session, me along with all of you will get a better understanding of that. So I'll now hand it over to Himadrida. We'll start off the session like it goes, and we'll ask questions later on.
Sure. Thanks, Sayan, for the inputs. And the next part of the questions is we'll start off with Subhadipda. The question is for both of you. We always have I keep on mentioning that there is always a teacher, whether that teacher is nature or whether that teacher is like a person. We always learn from someone or from something. So, what has been your inspiration? Who has been your inspiration in this journey through landscapes or particularly through long exposures? That is one question. But before that, there is a question in Facebook. Sorry, there is a question in YouTube. Just let me read it out. Please excuse the interruption. Why do we see long exposures in digital era only? We did not see old age photographers doing long exposures. So probably you could connect both of them and then answer. We'll go off.
Yeah, I
Subhadip.
can answer that. I did try doing long exposures during the film era, but the problem is because we are limited. See, now it's much more affordable, I feel, than it was then. You were first, number one, you're restricted by the number of roles you had. You could not experiment much until unless you had oodles of cash to invest on film, canisters. You could not experiment much. So you are limited. You had limited experimentation available. I had tried long exposures on film and they did not turn out very well. But I remember I had seen quite a lot those photography magazines at that point of time, amateur photography and all. They used to carry images of long exposures. That means people at film era also used to do long exposures, but not as much as today, because today you can experiment more. Plus, once you are into long exposures, once you extend time, then at that point of time, people used to use filters and all to hold down light from a certain part, which would otherwise get overexposed. Filters that time, at least in India, were very hard to come, were very expensive. I remember I had invested in some Kokin graduated filters, which are round. I had a blue filter and a tobacco filter. It was pretty expensive. It was long time buy. I had one filter cost me 3,000 rupees each, which is very, very expensive. Considering inflation also, it was very, very expensive at that time. So we couldn't invest much also. Once digital came, we could blend images. Then filters started getting cheaper. That when I was doing film, we had looked for, me and Navarro, I still remember, we looked for ND filters. We read about ND filters, but nowhere could we find ND filters for sale. So that was a restriction. It's much more easier now. So we see more of long exposures.
Yeah, similar thoughts here. Means I have no experience with film era at all, and Subhadip is the best person to answer. I started photography just 5 to 6 years now, so I have no idea about why people were not doing long exposures with film during the film era. But however, I attended a workshop with Babak Tafreshi. He happens to be, I think you guys know him.
Yes.
Yeah. So he came to Oman, and I was lucky to attend one of his workshops. But he mentioned one thing which was very interesting and new to me. He said that during film era, the stars have different colors. And those colors, only the analog camera can capture those colors, which was really interesting point that he mentioned. And that's why he said he still he still would like to shoot star trails with analog camera.
Maybe it was the nature of that slide.
Right. I think because of the chemical, but somehow he mentioned specifically that no camera, and he showed one photo also that he captured with analog camera, and the color was really different. And he said that stars actually have colors. It's not white.
These actually at higher ISO. We shoot at higher ISOs, so we usually burn out the color. So
no, they have. They definitely have a lot of color, which talks about you again call me a scientist, so I'll not go on.
Yeah. So coming back to my initial question, Sanak.
Yes.
Please tell us about your inspirations, or how did you learn? Where did you learn from? Like
definitely, my guru is Daniel Cheong when it comes to cityscape, urban landscape. So I would request all the people who are watching here today, just go to his Insta profile and check out his images. The way he handles exposure is just next to no one. And I was right. I was very fortunate to attend two of his workshops, in one in Dubai and one in Oman, with the hope of learning a few tricks that he has in his arsenal. And eventually, yes, I did learn few tricks from him, which I will show eventually later part in this presentation. That what he showed me, I will definitely share it. And yeah, I always look up to Daniel Chung for urban landscapes. And there is another guy, I don't know his name exactly, but his Insta name is Mind's Eye. I'm sure many of you are following. His urban landscapes are also just phenomenal. These two guys I specifically follow for my urban landscape inspirations. And Daniel Chung, I am very much connected with Daniel. Whenever I have some issues, I always talk to him also to get some ideas that what's going wrong and how I can I can do better the photos. Definitely, he's very busy man. Now he has he's completely a professional photographer, but he tries to help, and he's a phenomenal guy. He's one of my biggest inspiration. I started urban landscape seeing his images, and there was one more guy who actually is very dormant these days. He's in hibernation mode. His name is Partho Roy. I don't know, guys know him or not. He's in Singapore now. He's a Singapore-based guy, and he's also into urban landscape. So when I started way back in 2015, his images also came directly. It struck me, that how this is possible. Such dynamic range, such flawless exposure balancing. So he was the initial catalyst again, who acted in a positive way.
Subhadip, off to you.
Okay, what was the thing? I lost the train.
Basically, we always learn from influences, lessons, or where sometimes we learn from nature, sometimes we learn from certain people. So who influenced you?
I learned a lot from 500px.
Yeah.
Thing. So we used to see Mark Adamas, Ted Go, Ryan Dyer, Erin Babnick, all those things whose talks we've been following on.
Exploring life.
Exploring life.
Yeah.
So those guys I used to see, I was like, wow, how is this even possible?
Right.
So slowly, I still remember had to have night time chats with Sayan, trying to demystify how these guys do things.
Yes.
Because at that point of time, probably they were not into workshops, and also not into live sessions like this.
Yeah. That way, but still, so slowly. I figured out things mainly by reading. I still remember I could not figure out how to do this. How is the waterfall here, a small cascade here, and a big mountain? Wow, they have access to such a beautiful location. Just at the foot of the mountain, they have got a waterfall and they can cover it all in a frame. How do they do it? I still remember it was Erin. There's this group of photographers called Photo Cascadia. Sean Backshaw, Erin Babnick, and all. So one of Erin Babnick's articles I read, where she talked about the current trends in landscape photography, focal length blending, and focus taking, all that. So then I figured out, okay, these are the things. So then back-ended research led me to explore these things on my own, and slowly I figured out a few things myself.
Okay.
And plus interacting with friends, that's also like-minded photographers are there.
So, Subhadip, do you do focal length blending?
Yes. I have tried it a few times.
He did one recently that I'll talk about that image also. One with the waterfall and the mountains behind. He had uploaded one recently.
So those are the inspirations basically. And nowadays, so Sanak, first I came across Sanak's work, I was like amazed. I did not think this was possible for an Indian to do it. Because in India, we don't see very high standards of landscape photography, to be honest. The most popular Indian landscape photographer I put in quotes, in landscape photographer, is I think with the number of followers, this day with Instagram you see followers, I think it's Bobby Joshi.
Right.
But there are many other photographers who are much better, who can articulate things visually much better.
Right.
Like I did not know Sanak, then one day I had stumbled upon a desert landscape with stunning land. Then I saw this is possible for somebody from this country to go and shoot it. So in that tonal contrast and everything, that I go to with images, I do not analyze it too well. I go by visual impact.
Right.
So similarly, there are other photographers also. Some around me, some say 100 kilometers away from me.
Right. Right. So, Subhadip, you had mentioned that you have made a presentation ready for this whole long exposure session.
Since we are talking long exposures, there
Right.
might be some people who do not have concept of long exposures and how things work. So basically, so I'll just
Could you
run
take
a
us
short
through?
presentation.
Yes, yes. please.
Nothing very complex. Somebody is already doing landscape photography, will have the idea. But still, just a few thoughts on how things work.
Right. Please.
So I'll share a screen and we can take it from there. Yeah, can you see a screen?
We can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, just a minute. Let me run the show. So basically, what is long exposure? So that all of us know, long exposure is a commonly used photographic technique, which is used by using long shutter speeds. So this usage of long shutter speed allows us to capture blur, allows us to show movement. Since it's being a two-dimensional media photography, so it's difficult for us to show movement, and also allows us to show various areas of light. So, but long exposure photography is not restricted to landscape photography. It can be with any genre. Long exposure cover steel wool photography, where the steel wool is burnt and whirled around. That covers long exposure photography. Light painting, where we use light tubes and all, that covers long exposure photography. Star trails are also long exposure photography. There are cityscapes using long exposure photography. Sports photography also uses long exposure photography. Even abstract photography is possible using long exposure photography. To think of that, even street photography is possible in long exposure photography, where we are going to show a sense of movement and all. So how do you define what is long exposure photography? Basically, it's a general concept where if you use a shutter speed longer than 1 second, we generally tend to categorize it as long exposure. It's a long exposure. It might not be long exposure photography as such, but any shutter speed longer than 1 second will fall into the realm of long exposure. So basically, how can you use it? You can use it in landscapes to blur clouds, to show the movement of water or the movement of grass. In seascapes, you can use it to soften water, make it smooth. In architecture, it's used to blur the skies with soft streaks of clouds or to make the crowds on the street disappear. In people, we can use it in people photography. I saw a recent photograph by Puneet Verma, where is beautifully used long exposure to blur the people where one group is static and the other people are blurred. So how does long exposure photography help us? It helps us bring a surreal and otherworldly effect to a photograph. It leads photography to the realm of art. So what gear is essential? So basically we need a camera which can be remotely controlled, and we should preferably have a bulb mode. We will obviously need a tripod because the camera has to be still for a longer period of time. We'll need a shutter release, and we might also need ND filters if we're shooting in brighter light, and we need to cut the amount of light coming into the lens. This is the gear I use. I use a tripod. I have got a couple of cameras, some lenses. I use Nisi and Haida filters. I've got a 10-stop, 6-stop, and a 3-stop, and a GND filter, which I hardly use. And most importantly, is you need the cable releases, either a wired cable release or a remote cable release. Because while doing long exposures, it is not possible for us to handle it by hand, which will result in movement, camera movement itself, which we do not want to capture until unless it's intentional. Our focus is to capture the movement in the scene in front of us. So, for example, let us take this scene. This is a seascape. So, this first scene is shot at 1/30 shutter speed. And here you can see that the waves have lots of texture. Lots of texture. But it depends on what essence of the water do you want to capture. So if this is what you want to capture, you're okay with it. But if it's something else you want to capture the dynamic nature of the water, its fluidity. So then we tend to go for a longer shutter speed. So in this case, we can see the difference. This is shot at 1/30, and if I increase my shutter speed, decrease my exposure, increase my exposure time to 6 seconds in this case, we can see the difference in the texture of the water. The water has it shows more fluidity, which shows a different character of the water. So it basically depends on us photographers what you want to show. But this has got a more painterly feel to it than the faster shutter speed. So I personally prefer going for a longer exposure to get that surreal feel. Similarly, we can see the effects of long exposures.
Yeah, Subhadip, could you go back to that image? Anupamda already had a question related to this for Sanak, but you have answered it. You have answered it already. So the question is, how long should be the shutter speed to get the details in the sea, in the movement of the sea?
That will depend on the force of the waves. No? If the waves are soft,
right,
you'll need a different exposure. If the waves are very fast, you'll need in this case, the waves are, I could get, in fact, 6 seconds exposure makes the water lose some texture here.
Yeah, also I think it's very important to learn about the tides, under what tide you are going to shoot. That also is a factor when you are shooting seascape. I always see about the tidal movements. It's either low tide or high tide, because in high tide you get the waves are more abrupt, and in those cases I think you can easily get good textures if you play with your shutter speed. But in low, it's difficult. You have to really get down. Yeah, so that is also one of the factors that you should consider.
So like I move ahead.
Yes.
So next we can see the effects of long exposures on, say, clouds. So this is done for experimental purposes only. The first shot is taken at 1/350 of a second. Here we see the clouds are static, no movement. Next shot I tried is 1/90. It doesn't show much of a difference. The cloud movement is more, there is no movement in both the shots. But when I drag my exposure to 30 seconds, then the clouds start showing some movement. And I can drag it to 52. When I dragged in this case further to 52 seconds without blowing any highlights, I was experimenting then. So we saw more movement. So basically it's up to us what we want to portray. If you want to portray a certain movement which gives an artistic feel to the photograph, basically. But there is nothing right or wrong about anything. Even the first image is right. I feel even the last image is right. But this is about how you want to portray yourself artistically. So the next set I have got, the next set is, see, this is a beautiful scene which is happening before me. There's high peaks in front of me, and there was good cloud structure. But I thought, okay, and the clouds are moving. The clouds are moving, but very gently. So initially I tried a 30-second exposure where the clouds did not show much movement. Then I put in 16 stops filter. I stacked 2 filters to get 16 stops. Then I start getting the cloud movement, which to me appeals much more than the more static cloud scene. This imparts a dynamism to the scene. So in some scenes we might want to use a longer exposure. In some scenes we might not want to use a longer exposure. The same mountain I have shot in a different aspect where I used a shorter exposure because I felt that long exposure would not do justice with the way the clouds are moving. In this scene, I thought the cloud movement would add something to my image.
Right.
Same again with water. This is a waterfall. Here also we can see it depends on what you want to portray. So I shot this at different shutter speeds. If you see it 1/6 and 1/8, and even at 1/10, we get certain texture. And water has got a life of its own. So if you shoot at different shutter speeds, you'll find slight variations in the movement of the water, the streaks. So then it all boils down to personal choice, what you want to take. If you want to show texture, maybe I would go for the 1/8 or 1/6 one. But if I want to blur down everything, then I'll go for a 30 seconds exposure, which makes it a bit more mystical. So basically, it's all down to there's personal choice basically. But I love using long exposures in my photographs. Similarly, this seascape scene, first scene is shot at 1/15, the next at 10 seconds. We can see the variation. The first one shows there's a dynamism, the water is moving in. In the 10-second scene, it's much more calmer. So, what we want to express, we use exposure control allows us to express ourselves. So, if I want to express calmness in a photograph, I will go for the 10-second scene, or maybe even more. If I want to show the dynamism of the water, that the water has got power, then I'll go by the faster shutter speed. So basically, it all boils down to what you want to portray. It's
power.
What do you call it? Artistic intelligence.
Yeah, it shows power, restlessness. You could interpret it in so many ways.
Basically, it goes down to what as an artist you want to portray.
Right.
So this is the final shot I had shown you there earlier that I had taken long exposures. So here I got texture in the water. I had used a much shorter shutter speed because I wanted to capture the power of the waves, but still at the same time I had to give a certain softness to the water. So at this shot is most probably 1/4 of a second, where I got the texture of the water. So what would be the correct, question now, what would be the correct shutter speed to use? So it basically depends on the nature of the waves. So these are hard hitting waves coming in very fast. So 1/4 of a second helped me capture good texture in the water. Whereas in this scene, this is at low tide again, the waters were very gentle. The waves were like very gentle. So capturing texture in those waves would not be very interesting. So here I went in for a long exposure, 30 seconds plus, I think, which helped me calm down the water, and as a consequence, helped me focus the viewer's eyes to the light on the rocks. Had there been waves here, then the viewer's attention would get diverted by the waves.
Right.
So basically, it depends on the scene, what you are trying to portray, all those things.
Correct.
So another good usage of long exposure is waterfalls. So, but I personally feel if you along with the longer exposure, if you have something static, like a rock, a leaf, the tree, the static, so it helps that visual contrast better. So here again, there is no right or wrong what shutter speed to use. It depends on what you want to portray. You want to portray water in its smoothness and its texture. Similarly, again here, this is shot in my early days when I'm experimenting in long exposure. This is a 30 seconds exposure. So which totally smoothed out the water. But I love the effect.
Right.
Here again, here I used a blend of two images. For the foreground, I wanted to give texture to the water. So for the foreground, I shot the water at a faster shutter speed. Whereas I wanted the water in the back to have this dreamy feeling. So another shot I had taken using a longer exposure, and I put them both together to represent that artistic effect I was looking for. And long exposures need not only be water, they can be clouds, they can be traffic trails. So in this otherwise bland scene of a road running through a valley gets much more impetus, much more vibrancy just by the addition of the movement of traffic through the scene. So this is also courtesy long exposure, which of the moving cars, it takes the headlights of the real lights and draws it out as a line. Similarly, in this scene, this is a static city shot, but the traffic trails add a certain vibrancy to it. Helps it differentiate.
One of my favorites from your collection. Yeah.
So even star trails are long exposures. Like I said,
Right.
This shows the movement of stars over a long period of time. While so this is a brief introduction basically for those who are new into this field. But for much more inner depth into the workings of long exposures, Sanak will be the right person.
Right. So thank you for that presentation, Subhadip. We have certain questions. So I think we will keep the questions for a later part. Do you have anything to add or ask, Sam?
Not really. He touched all the points very nicely.
Okay. Okay.
I can have a common question which will touch all the points to both of them, but then should I do that before Sanak does his presentation, or talks about this, or should I do it before that?
We will go ahead with Sanak's presentation, and then we can come back to the discussion.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Sanak, by all yours.
Right. Okay. Shubhadip already covered everything that we normally think when it comes to long exposure photography. So I will tell something which is my thought process. How I believe that when and under what circumstances you should be considering to do a long exposure. Of course, when the light is less, we all know that we have to go for long exposures. There is no other option that you have to set up your camera on the tripod and go for long and do a shutter lag according to your choice. But we have filters also in landscape photography, and you should be very judicious in using the filters in landscape photography. And so my presentation will be basically why we use filters, why there is need of using filters, and the art of using filters. I will talk a little bit and try to provide my insights on using filters when it comes to landscape photography. So let me start my screen share.
Sanak?
Yes.
One thing, later you take us just, you had a photograph of the Howrah Bridge with a long exposure.
Yes, I have that. Yes.
Yeah. So will you take us through the thought process behind that image? Because I don't think I've seen any Howrah Bridge with long exposure.
I think it is there in this presentation. I think it is there.
Okay.
I will just go through the presentation.
Okay. Good.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes. Yes, we can see you,
right?
Started screen sharing. Yes, we can.
Right. So I will just go to the slideshow. Right. Is it okay now?
Yeah. It is okay, right. And we're all very excited.
Yes. So this is how I started my journey as a landscaper. I tried to shoot some seascapes, and these were my images that I shot in 2014. And that time I was very happy.
Yes, when you say
Shooting.
Sanak photography, that means you have done good.
Yeah, yeah, I was shooting this seascape, and this is where I stand now. These are my recent photographs that I have shot in the seascapes. So I just wanted to show that this journey was very full of fun, full of learning, full of hard work, and don't think that this came very easily and abruptly. It was a lot of sweat and hard-earned knowledge that eventually I put them together to make these images. So if you are more interested in landscape photography, you will definitely understand and appreciate that how much hard work it goes to create these images. It looks very wow on the screen, but the effort behind each of these images are just next to nothing. So let me start now. So basically, there are two types of photographs when it comes to landscape. One is urban landscape and natural landscapes. So just quickly, I will go through the most important aspects when it comes. You have to get ready with your right equipment, and planning is an integral part. Without proper planning, you will not end up having good images. Definitely, you have to plan well, analyze the contents of the scene, ambient light, and then the execution with normal camera settings, exposure, focus, and final presentation. And always shoot at raw, and the white balance keep it auto. That's what I do, except there are special cases where I choose to maneuver my own white balance, especially during the nightscapes. But most of the time I shoot in raw, so I have the liberty to change that in my post processing. So getting ready, of course, I am using Nikon. I am using now Nikon 850 and D4, and sorry, this was my Nikon presentation, so I had put Nikon 1424. Actually, I'm using Tamron 1530. The other lenses are same. Filters, I am using Nisi advanced filter set 150 by 150, and I have a MC36A cable release. These are the absolute must for all the landscape photographers who want to excel and to produce good photographs. Tripod I am using now Leophoto. This is really the best tripod that I have ever used till now, and I can suggest you. I am not associated with any of these brands, Leophoto, but definitely I will suggest you, if you want to give it a try. This is really a very affordable and very sturdy tripod. And L bracket is must if you want to excel in your vertical framing. This is a must have in your kit to get some vertical frames without any shake. Now I will come to the essential part. That's the ND filters and circular polarizers. These,
if I may just interrupt, Choudhury.
Right.
Yeah, just a couple of words on the L bracket, because a lot of people watching not be knowing what it is and how powerful a tool it is. So maybe a couple of words on that. Yeah.
Please, you go ahead, Shayan. You tell that.
You tell them.
No, basically, it just helps you to. You can see it gives more stability for your vertical framings. If you see the picture where I have put the camera in the vertical orientation with the L bracket, it gives you the best stability that you can afford to get while composing vertical compositions. So this is absolutely must for everyone who wants to do vertical compositions without any shake. Because what happens in the ball head, I don't have that image. If you turn the orientation to vertically, you cannot get as stable as it can be.
The whole weight stills to one side, and then then it becomes very difficult. Yeah.
So this is, I will definitely suggest everyone to have this, and always do invest in a good tripod. That is the very basic part.
Is that tripod a travel tripod, the one you showed, or is it a bulkier one?
No, it's a travel. It's not that heavy.
Fine.
And the best thing is
fantastic.
The best thing is that there is no middle leg, so you can really put it as flat as possible. So this is really a game changer for me. I loved it.
Okay. And then that's a ball head, right? Okay. Yeah.
That's a ball head. Yeah, it's like Gitso, and and comes 1/4 of the price. It's very cheap.
Fantastic. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. So the filters. So I believe that photography is definitely a part of painting. Though the compositional rules that we know, it was directly derived from the photographers of the contemporary paintings. The painters used to incorporate those compositional rules in their photographs, and now we photographers use that to create our photographs. So this is my photo in the down corner, and you can see the photograph. It's almost same. The photographer replicates by shaping the light with their brushes, and we do it by shaping it with our camera. So this is the only difference. So it's a frame is to a photographer what a canvas is to a painter. So we have 4 squares in the sensor, and they have the canvas with them. Now coming to filters, we photographers used to shape light and colors using different types of brushes. With the different types of brush strokes, they used to shape colors and light in their images. But we photographers, we shape light with the use of different stops of filters that we have, and accordingly we make the photographs. So the different shades, it's basically equivalent to the different brush strokes that the painter used to use with the different types of filter stops that we use as photographers to shape light and create the image that we want. So what brushes are to a photographer is the filters to us. To a painter is filters to us as photographers. So how I shape my brush strokes, I use V5 Pro. These are my filter system for by 100 by 100 with various adapter rings. And I have the 1530 Tamron, which is a bigger one. It is having inbuilt with a polarizer. So CPL, we use CPL because basically it helps you to reduce the amount of light entering in camera and it reduces the haze and also gives pops up your images gives you more vibrancy in your clouds and color of the sky. And another aspect that is we often overlook is it gives you a ND2 stop effect. It has the ability to block at least 2 stops of light when you're using CPL. Apart from reducing the glare and reflections. So the effect of using CPL, you can see the left image was without CPL and the right image is with CPL. The difference is very pronounced. You can really saturate the colors and bring out the textures. Of course, I have done a bit of post-processing. This is without CPL, and this was again with CPL. This is another example without CPL and with CPL. This was again on the way to Ladakh, the Amarnath base camp. It was raining, so I wanted to do a long exposure, but eventually it was not possible, and I ended up with just using a CPL. This is the image that Subhadip was talking about. This is the image without any filters or CPL, the one I shot. And this is the final outcome with the CPL and the filters. I will come back again to this image to explain why I use the CPL and filter for this image. So what a ND filter does, basically it creates a shutter lag and it gives you the possibility to use wider aperture. So basically, if you use ND filters upon the right side, the image, if you see, the photographer has used a 6-stop, I think, ND filter to blur the background. It helped him to widen the aperture so he can appreciate the shallow depth of film. Now the question is, which neutral density filter should you use for your choose, and how to choose an ND filter? So you have to understand that there are various types of ND filter for your long exposure needs. There are screw-in and square filter holders. There are 2 types of filters in the market available. Now both have its advantages and disadvantages. So advantages definitely for square filters is for round filters, it's quick installation, space saving, allows less light to seep in around the edges during the use, and it is cheaper. And disadvantages use a single diameter, so you have to buy each filter for each of your lenses. Unable to stack filters. You cannot stack filters with screw-in filters. Advantages of square filters: you can stack filters, multiple adapter rings. That means these adapter rings you can fix with any cameras you want, any lenses you want, and with the different diameters, and the little or no risk of vignetting. In screw-in filters, there are always a chance of getting more vignettes compared to compared to square filters. And disadvantages, of course, adaptation time is more. You have to spend more time, practice more time to get these filters to get acquainted with these filters. And it's very expensive compared to the round filters. And there is one more filter called variable neutral density. It so allow you to reduce light by variable stops. So basically, in one filter, if you rotate, it will help you to get different stops to play with. And I will not suggest this filter because I use this specifically. I don't know whether Subhadip has used it or not, but this filter has a very bad color cast, and the quality was not at all appreciable.
And you get that dreaded X pattern, no?
Right. So definitely,
and it also fogs in between. It also fogs in between. Like
right. It's very poor optical performance.
Yeah. It is not a really,
for video, I think, not for still.
Right.
Yeah, it is not a very recommended filter, I believe.
Right. So what are the recommended ND filters for landscape photography in the current scenario? How I see it is how you want your images, final images to look. I will come to this point in the next slides. When considering which strengths to purchase, think about what you would like to achieve in terms of motion and blur effects, because you have to shape the light accordingly with different stops. The thumb rule is go with 10 stop and 6 stop. This is what I will suggest. And then eventually with time, you can definitely have the chance to buy more filters. But a good thumb rule to start with is to start with 10 stop and 6 stop. And a good place to start through with neutral density filter landscape, as I mentioned, 6 stop and 10 stop filter along with a CPL. CPL is a must. And remember, you can always stack neutral density filters to get a longer exposure time and to achieve the overall effect that you want. So basically, if you are buying the square system, you have the ability to stack filters. Suppose you are using 10 stop and the cloud movements are very less. So you want some movement in your images. So you have to stack 16 stop. So you can put a 6 stop over the 10 stop to get that, to appreciate that movement. So this was a image without filter that I chose, as Subhadip also showed last time. And this was, I used a 6 stop filter. So, to get the effect that I wanted. So I will come back again after that. Why I chose to, I could have kept like this, but why I choose to use 6 stop, I will come back to this in the latter part. With ND filters, one of the most common problem that you get is color cast. So it's very bothering issue. And I had experience with 2 types of filter. One is Lee and one is Nisi. So both are unprocessed images. You can see with the Lee, there is a cyan cast, fully blue cast is there. I think people who have used Nisi will experience the same. And the one with Nisi, you can see almost it's near to 0. I will not tell 0. It's near to 0 color cast. So in terms of color cast, definitely Nisi is one of the best filters that you can have in your kit. With graduated ND filters, with this current digital era, the use of this filter is very limited. Under very less circumstances, I use these filters. Definitely, it actually acts as it provides a gradual changing of ND gradient across the glass plate. That is darker ND number at the top, changing to clear glass bottom at the bottom, glass at the bottom. So I use it in specific part, some images where I really wanted to get a more pronounced. It acts as a, with the top part, you can actually reduce the exposure, and you can actually it helps you to lag the shutter more. You can play with your shutter more if you use it with the ND filter. So with this image, you can see without ND filter, it was like this, and with ND filter and ND grad, I put ND grad to create more shutter lag to get the cloud movement more intense. So under you have to decide under which condition you should be using ND grad and ND grad filter. Another place where I use, I shoot almost all type of photos that, and I don't keep myself only restricted to landscape and urban landscape. I love to shoot all type of photos. So this is in the fish market in Oman. You can see that both are taken with wide angle lenses, and definitely I have used the ND grad because I wanted the action to be freezed with the sky exposure balanced with the shadows. So I have used the ND grad here under both the cases to get the optimal exposures. because if you don't use the ND grad in this situation, it was impossible for me to because there is no way out. You cannot take different exposures here. You have to freeze the moment, plus you have to get a balanced exposure. This is another photo from Ladakh where I've used ND grad to get the sky and the sun and the highlights part to balance with the shadows. So tips for all filters: before going for filters, definitely be selective in your filter use. A filter won't necessarily bail you out from taking a bad photo, but it will help you to take a great photo. Be keen to maintain image quality. Don't stack filters on top of each other unless you have to. The more pieces of glass that the light has to pass through, the lower the image quality will be. Be wary of tunneling or vignetting when using wide angle lenses. It's a very important point when you're using wide angle. Be on the lookout for quality. You get what you pay for. There are cheap options, but which are great fun and perhaps good to start experimenting with if you are not too serious or are on a tight budget. But the old rule of thumb definitely applies here. The better the filter, the more it will bring to the task, and less image quality will degrade. So definitely spend on your filters judiciously. Don't go for the cheaper ones and regret after. I will definitely suggest that do a good research before buying the filters. Now I will come back to the art of using filters. How I believe and how I believe under what circumstances why a person should consider using filters. It's not that if you have the filters in your bag you have to use it. There are certain conditions or certain situations which will allow you to use the filters judiciously. So a painter have brushes and color palettes in his bag, and we photographers have filters in our bag. So the painter uses the brushes and the paintings to shape light and colors in their images, and we use this type of filters to shape light and colors in our images, right? So if we use all the filters and if the painter use all the brush and all the colors in one image, he will create a Mona Lisa like this. And if we create all our filters or whatever we have in our arsenal, we will create something like this. The images on the right side are mine, which I started. I was obsessed with HDR when I started photography, and I used to believe that these surreal images will really stand out different, Now, what are the components to be analyzed to determine the use of filters? Clouds, as Subhadip said earlier, patterns, textures, rate of movement. Clouds can be of different type, different textures, and the rate of movement of clouds. Even if you look nakedly in the sky, you can appreciate the movement of the clouds. Water body, including seascapes, you have to check the intensity, and of course the tide. Assessment of light, very important to get a balanced landscape. The foreground, midground, background, that is layers, colors, and contrast. These are the components that you should look when you are going to shoot a landscape and consider to use a filter for long exposures. How to ascertain the exposure time? How will you ascertain? I will. This is basically. I will go to the very simple way. There is an app, Nisi app, which can be downloaded. There are many apps. These apps are very handy. So you can download in your smartphones and take a normal shot without the filters. It will give you, suppose this one, the left one example, the without filter, the shutter speed was 1250. Now you want to put, you determine which stop of filter you want to put. Suppose you want to put 6 stops. So it will automatically calculate and give you the exposure time. So accordingly, you can set the exposure time, but there are scenarios where you really want to play with the shutter, with the waves, as we saw some examples already. In those cases, better to start, means you have to keep on do it in randomly, means you have to press 1/4 second or 1 second. You have to play with different shutter speed and check how the textures are coming. So another way that I think is we are actually communicating a 3D world through a 2D photograph, which boils down to how well you convey depth. So I believe that with the use of filters, there are ways you can create that depth in your images. with the help of filters and using long exposures. So basically, this is what we are doing for our photographs when we are talking about composition. This is basically arrangement of forms, lines, elements in a picture design. So we are planning. We are actually putting the lines and the forms and the elements in the picture to create the depth that we want to show, portray with the 2D camera that we have. To understand what is 3D and 2D, this is a very basic thing that you have to understand, a term called stereopsis. Stereopsis is basically nothing. It is the depth perception, is the ability of both eyes to see the same object as one image and to create a perception of depth. It is a measure of binocular visual function, that is how well both eyes work together. This is a basic part that you have to understand, that when human eyes see an object, both eyes differently appreciate the object. You can see in the image, the right eye see the object, which the left eye sees in a different way. So both these images then comes to the visual axis and go to the brain, and then that original image is formed, which gives you the 3D accept, 3D, which helps you to appreciate the 3D quality of the image. But cameras cannot do that. So what are the factors we photographers include in the photographs to create that 3D depth in your images? Layers, light and dark, the play between light and dark, and composition. Of course, composition elements are there. So layers, as example, this one, this image I have shown with the example. So you can easily see the different layers in the image that I have created here. On the left, you can see the Shanti Stupa and the snow-capped mountain with the clouds acts as a separation. So this creates layers and helps you to appreciate the depth in the image. This is another example in Ladakh. You can easily appreciate the depth in the image because I have created textures, colors, and the element in my composition. So this one, with CPL, taken with CPL, so that's why I'm showing you. So you can easily appreciate the depth in the images. Now you have to understand the play between dark and light and dark. That also creates depth in your images. This is a seascape. Why I used a filter here? Because it first you have to see the textures in the foreground elements that creates the depth in your image. Plus, it gives you exactly, if you see the golden triangles, the rock on the right side is getting at the intersection point, and the left, the main foreground, is also coming in the intersection point. And I can draw a diagonal. How? Because these cloud movement are moving I mean diagonally, the movement of the clouds, if you see. So you can create a diagonal with that corner to and create the golden triangles in your images. And plus there is the difference, it leads your eyes to the main scene. And also if you see the background hills, the light and the dark textures of the hills creates a depth in the image. Plus since it was an overcast sky, you can see the dark and light and dark part of the image also gives you the helps you to appreciate the depth in your images. This is another example. Again, the tree on the branches leads your eye, and that really gives a depth in the image. Another example of the seascape. Again, you see the stark contrast between the light and the dark stones. Plus, this acts as leading lines, and then the different color contrast between the two images. You can appreciate the light, the colors, and the light and the dark, the shadow part. So this gives a 3D feel in the image. So basically, composition is what I believe is visualization, anticipation of lines, arrangement of the elements. This is what we look for. Now, I used this image. I will use an example. Why I could have kept the image on the left side. Left side image is without filter. Why I chose to use a filter on the image? What should be the logic behind it? Only because of cloud movement? No, this cannot be the logic only. If I use a filter, that will give you the cloud movement. If you see, the movement is diagonal, and it creates a tension again. With that movement, you can create diagonals across the frame. And if you see the triangles, it again come in the intersection of the main visual elements in the scene. One is the foreground and one of the hills. So it really creates dynamic tension in your frame. If you are if you incorporate diagonals and triangles in your frame. Now, this is the photo that Subhadip was mentioning. So this was shot in the Howrah Bridge. Again, this was without filter. You can see there is no depth in the image at all. Means it's flat. The highlights are very. Your eyes are just hitting the highlights straight away. But when I use a CPL and the filters, you can see the effect that the filter that the image is getting. So I put this was an exposure of around almost 200 plus seconds with a ND 16 stop and a CPL. But what was the necessity of using a filter here? I could have kept the image like this. Why like this? Definitely, you can see the visual appeal is different in the image, and it has more depth in the image. How? Because of course the colors are popping up in the foreground. You can see the color of the red garland that immediately creates the attention. Plus, you can see the movement of the cloud. It creates diagonals in the frame, and the Howrah Bridge is one of the intersection point of the triangle, and your eyes are moving actually as a leading line through the Howrah Bridge, going to the sky, and then again coming back to the garland. So this is how I think my thought process goes when I compose an image, and definitely long exposure incorporates those elements which otherwise wouldn't have been possible to create without using the filters and long exposure. For example, this image, you cannot appreciate any movement or any drama. It looks as flat as it is possible, but with this one you can do that. This is another example without filter in the Dolomites, and you can see the one with the filter. Again, you can see the movement of the clouds that creates. You can anticipate the movement, and it creates more drama in the images. And also the light at the background of the hill creates that depth in the images. This is Zanskar in Ladakh. It's again a very flat image. This place has nothing much to shoot actually. This is overshot place, and there is no unique composition I could find when I went there. This is my second outing in this place, and so I decided to try filters to create something different, and I came up with this one. Again, you can appreciate the movement of the clouds created a tension in the frame, and you can easily create diagonals across the frame, and again the golden triangles are incorporated. So, but with the use of filters judiciously, you can create a different tension in your frames. Another example which it was used without filters, the left image and the right image, I used a 10 stop filter. Again, you can anticipate the movement of the clouds, which was again diagonally. So you can create again the diagonals across the frame, and the two main visual elements are again intersecting at the golden triangle intersections. So this gives you different depth in your images. This is another example that I showed you in the beginning. This was without filter, and this is around 30 seconds exposure. Again, you can see with the cloud, it is moving to the right side laterally, almost laterally. So you can create a golden spiral with the rock on the left, and then your eyes are coming straight away to the foreground. So this gives again it adds value and depth and creates a tension in your frame. This was the one image I showed you before without filter. And when I use the 6 stop, why I use the 6 stop? Because if you see the textures of the water, these acts as leading lines, which leads your eyes to the horizon. So this is why I use a 6 stop. I could have used a 10 stop, but I used the 6 stop filter to create the textures, which acts as leading lines. This was another example. Again, if you see, I use a 6 stop to create the textures in the foreground. And this again leads your eyes to the horizon, and it creates definitely triangles, which are more adds more dynamic tension in the frame. This is another example. Again, now by this time you all have understood why I used a filter here. There was no point of using filter, but why I used, because again you see the cloud movement. Again, it creates the diagonals across the frame. It adds that tension in your frame, and it of course it falls in the rule of thirds. This is again, I use a 10 stop and CPL. You can easily see the depth in your image. Again, the clouds are moving diagonally. You can create diagonals, and again, the two elements are intersecting in the golden triangles. This is the Grand Mosque. This was a flat image again without long exposure. Why I use long exposure? You can see the colors are more popping up, and definitely the cloud movement, which helps you to create diagonals, and also those lines are supporting to lead your eye to the mosque, which gives you a 3D feeling in your image. This was in Slovenia without filters, and this was again with filters. You can again change the aesthetic value of the photo. Means it gets more artistic with the use of filters. Now, urban landscapes. Unlike landscapes, photographers document human-made intervention structures in environments and cityscapes. Thumb rules always guide the eye with leading lines. Shoot during blue hour and exposure blend. Blending exposure is very important. This is a quick, just a quick idea on why about the two aspects when it comes into landscape photography. With urban landscapes, of course, you try to use complementary colors in the color wheel, blue and yellow. If you see the opposite colors. And in landscape, definitely we are more into playing with analogous colors. I am obsessed with Ted Gore's color theory. I think most of you must be knowing his color theory. So they play with the shades which are adjacent to each other. The difference is very means it's very much you can see it very much there with the sunset photo, that the same photo which I have taken in the blue hour. You can see the difference in the two photos, definitely because of the colors. The orange light, street lights came up and it's complementing blue, so it gives more depth in your image. This was the image that Subhadip is hanging in the wall just behind him. Again, it was taken in the blue hour. And now you have to understand that blue has different tonal range. It's not that you have to take the shot only when at the start of the blue hour. Wait wait from the golden hour till the end of the blue hour, because the tonal variations of the blue gradually changes from the starting till it ends. This is another blue hour shot in Oman. You can see the colors again. This was just in the transition of blue hour and the golden hour. The clouds were amazing. So I just used I think a CPL for this image just to pop up the colors more. This I already spoken about before. This is in Ladakh, in Leh. This was a panorama again. I created a long exposure to create those movement in my photos. This is urban landscape in Pargong. I will tell it urban because these tents have spoiled the place now. Hopefully these are not there. I heard like that. So this was again, I did a long exposure because you can see you can create diagonals with the movement of the clouds across the frame. And then these tents acts as a leading lines, which goes up to the sky, and it gives you, it leads your eye actually to the scene. This was another example of the blue hour shot that I have taken in Oman. Again, this was following in the rule of thirds. This is without filter, and I used a filter, 10-stop filter, to create that motion in my image. Now this is an interesting shot which Cheyenne liked it too much, and it was in Venice. I was talking about compositions till now, creating compositions with long exposure. So you have to understand that don't go with when you are going. Yesterday I learned a good thing when I was watching a online live with PJ and Alex and Ted. They go together to shoot, but they never copy each other's frame. They always each are unique in their own ways. So when you are going to shoot with a group of people, this place also I went with a group of people to shoot, and all were shooting on the opposite side of the bridge. That has a classical Venice view. I also shot that after, but I was not interested to shoot that because I saw the cloud patterns are much more interesting on the other side of the bridge. So I was the only photographer who was standing here to shoot this image, ignoring the most scenic part of Venice. Why I shoot this? Because
Sanak, let me interrupt you. What happened was there has been a lag between what you are saying and what we are seeing in the images. By the time you complete your sentence about Ladakh, the image does not even come in. So could you do one thing? Just stop the screen sharing once and reshare again, so that probably the problem is solved. Otherwise, we'll go ahead with this, because anyways we won't be able to take care of this technical snag.
Okay, let me stop share. Yeah.
Yeah, stop the screen.
Yeah, just stop sharing and come back. Yeah.
Sorry to break your flow, but I have been
Yeah,
doing
it's okay.
it for some time. Yeah. Reshare again.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Is it okay now? You can see my screen?
It
Not
hasn't
yet.
started yet.
Yeah. We can see.
So let me start with this this slide,
Yes.
Yeah.
or I will go little back.
No, this is fine.
This is fine.
This is fine.
Okay. So this is one of the shot that Shayan liked it very much. I specifically
I
remember.
loved
So
it. I loved it.
I will just
I
mention
still
as
love
to
it. And
I'll mention about the story of this photo. Yesterday, I was watching a very interesting session of Alex, Ted, and PJ, and they always go together to shoot, but they never encroach in each other's frame, you know, and they have their uniqueness in their own way. So this is very important. No matter you go to a place where the place has been shot several times, but you still have something to bring up from that place. So this was the place in the famous Academia Bridge. So if people who have been to Venice, they know that with Academia Bridge there is a special view. You know, the one going to the Grand Opera House. I think. I don't know the structure of the building, the name of the building. Everyone shoots that. I have also shot that just opposite to the bridge. You know, that view is opposite to the bridge, not this scene. But I was the only person shooting on the opposite side. Why? Because I anticipated the clouds, that the movement will be really something too interesting to shoot and frame for. So this was without the filters that I have shot, and this I used first a 10 stop filter. If you see, because I wanted really the cloud streaks, you know, to be more. Spontaneous, you know. I wanted more cloud streaks in my images, so I used a 10 stop. But the problem was the foreground was totally underexposed, and it was not the desired ones. I was not seeing the trails properly. So what I did, I used a 6 stop again to create another exposure, and I got the foreground very nicely, you know, with the boat trails and the houses. And then I just blended both of them to create this one. So as you can see, this again, with the movement of the clouds, you can again create diagonals in the frame. Plus you can create golden triangles, and the leading, those trails are acting as leading lines, which draws your image finally to the end. So this is how I visualize when I use filters and I do long exposure. It's not that you have to do long exposure, then you are doing. First, you have to choose the right vantage point. You have to analyze the elements, and accordingly, if you do the long exposure, definitely it will stand different compared to the others. This is another example in Slovenia. This was without filters, and I just watched without clicking some movement, how I anticipated the movement in the clouds. Accordingly, I set my filters, and I got this one. So again, you have to appreciate that the use of filters, how it creates the visual value in your images. This was in Taimur Mosque again. If you see, again with the filters, I created the movement and patterns. This is a panorama in Oman. Again, you can see the movement of the clouds, which I created, and the diagonals with the movement of the clouds. This is a shot recently in Grand Mosque, Oman. This one is without filters, you can see, and this I created with the filters. Why I use filters? Because I created the movement in the clouds, which helped me to put diagonals, and if you see, the two main elements are coming in the intersection of the golden triangles. So this was it actually that I wanted to show. This is all about my take on long exposure photography. I hope people have appreciate, what my thought process are. Is I always try to see it in this way.
That was fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, Sanak,
Like
you
you're basically
your screen sharing.
everything.
We could have
मुफ्त में फ्री में इससे ज्यादा इंफॉर्मेशन और कहाँ मिलेगा?
seriously. I'm happy and
Such detailed analysis. इतना so much thought goes behind Sonak's photographs. मतलब
Thank you, Subhadip. I appreciate your feedback.
Understand?
same here, same with me. And I'm so happy that both of you agreed to do this because this will be
But both of you have the basic that one can like regarding landscape shot, one landscape
Sayan,
shot.
you are
and
singing.
long exposure.
Yeah, eco.
Sayan, you are singing. So could you just log out and log back in?
Okay.
Your video is breaking up and your voice is coming out as if you are singing a Salman Khan song.
Okay.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Subhadip da, could we go to one of your images and look in a very brief way, look at the processing style or what goes into the processing part?
Okay. I am not as analytical as Sanak.
No, that's
Mine
fine.
is
We all are different.
without any real thought into it.
Right.
I'll pick up a simple image. Let's
Yeah.
see.
You could, if you could share your screen and
Yeah. Visible?
yes, it is visible. Yes.
I'll show the what went behind the making of this photo basically. Not a
Right.
great image per se, but more convenient.
Right.
So talking about like long exposures here also, here I could have, if you see this image, the long exposure is, the clouds were not moving absolutely fast. So even though I put in some time for this shot, the clouds did not show much movement. So here the long exposure is more about the water. The famous Nokkalikai Falls. So one of the most overshot locations in India. But I'll go through my brief insight on how I created this image, sort of. So basically, to capture the water texture, I had used a shot. I think this is around 2 seconds exposure. So here, actually, the falls is in a deep valley, and there is usually very high difference of brightness between the sky and the valley. So normally in a single shot, this is a post-sunset scene. The sun had gone behind the mountains. So in a single shot, it will be not difficult. It will be like very difficult to get a single shot. If you have to take a single shot, it is grads and all, which I avoid using. So basically, what I did, I took a 2 second exposure while I get a good water flow, and then I took a separate shorter exposure, slightly shorter exposure, to get the detail in the sky, which I merged together in post. So this is the ground shot, this is the sky shot, and I got my basic frame, and then I slowly built upon that. I tweaked, I had to do some color adjustments, which I did with the curves layer. Added some more warmth to the sky, I believe. Pumped up the reds. Then I use Nick quite a lot because I find the Nick suite tool, stroke contrast and all pretty helpful. It does not need too much to think about. Just pull some sliders here there, and usually I like the effect in some situations. So if you see the pro contrast, will get good decent contrast in the image. Then I worked subtly on the sky. Did some color dodging thing for the sky again. Did some dodge burn on the lower portion of the image to give it more depth. Then I shifted the balance of light again using a Nick tool. Played with some texture in the lower part of the image. Then use a vignette to guide the viewer's eyes towards the fall in the marvelous sky. I love autumn for some purpose, so I add a small dashes of autumn everywhere. Then some color tweaks here and there. Some more playing with curves to get the tonal variations that I am looking for, which I use very selectively. Something more to do with the sky, some slight tonal variations in the sky. And then some color correction to tidy tone up the whole image. So basically using these simple steps, I went from here to here. So this is a small image processing, which I did not very complex, something easy. So I hope that helps people who are viewing. So that's that, Himadri. Himadri, you are on mute.
Yeah. So I'm fine now.
Yeah.
I muted myself and then I start talking. Anyways, happens most of the time. So thank you, Subhadip, for walking us through one of your images and what goes on behind the processing part. Like there has been as you mentioned, like you took two shots, one for the bottom part and one for the upper part, one for the sky. So if you used filters, then you could have done it with one shot as well.
Yes. I could have used a grad, but I find grads very fiddly to use. Time taking. The scene is happening very fast in front of me.
Right.
Because we live closer to the equator. Our sunsets like dip and gun. Hardly get time. Had I been like science shooting in Iceland, I could have taken my time.
Right. Absolutely. So, Sanak bhai, in your images, I presume most of your images were single shots?
Not necessarily. It depends, but since I have 850, so I have the liberty to get the most of the details from single shot. But it depends on the balance between the shadows and the highlights, whether I will take a single shot or multiple exposure. But yes, I do play around with multiple exposures.
So you do brackets like
sometimes multiple exposures have to create a cleaner end result. That is also
right.
Actually, there I am asking. I already know this, but then for the benefit of the viewers, there was a question related to this. That is why I asked. So I like to go into it. So do you go for manual bracketing or do you go for the bracketing that the camera offers you? This is a question to both of you.
Sanak, take it first.
So, I think.
Hello?
Sanak, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you please repeat?
Yeah, the question is, when you go for bracketing, do you go for manual bracketing, like you decide on what the brackets should be and then you keep on changing your settings and then you keep on shooting? Do you do that? or do you go for the automatic bracketing options that the camera offers you and then go for brackets?
I normally go for auto bracketing, what the camera is offering me.
Right.
And I have a habit of always shooting at -1 EV stop. And I was always exposed for the highlights. This is my normal tendency to do whenever I'm shooting, most of the time.
Right. That is actually a good practice, because I have seen a few of my students or a few of the people whom I interact with. They always lose their highlights. They get
Right.
good details in midtones and darks, but then they always end up losing their highlights. And I keep on telling them, like, shoot for the highlights.
Right.
Even
And
if
exposure, you asked about exposure blending. That is very important for urban landscapes when you are shooting under, yeah, because you have to deal with different lights with different temperatures, different intensity. So
right,
this is impossible for any camera to bring out details from one exposure. No camera can do that. So definitely for urban landscapes, I will tell that exposure blending is a must.
right, right. So, Subhadip, would you like to add to this? Like, how do you do your bracketing? And
I rely on my camera. Normally I shoot that. Normally I shoot the ETTR thing. I expose to the right, keep the highlight just a bit away from clipping, and to add to that I bracket. I do not bracket only for exposures. I bracket also for that because the different exposures captured might capture something which might be of interest to me.
right,
Because I have it since when I was shooting a bracketed sequence, in one of the brackets, a bird is flown into the scene, which added to that image.
right,
So that thing is also there. So
right.
I usually end up bracketing quite a lot.
Okay. So, along with exposure blending, what are your takes on like focal length blending?
I do
You
them quite a
first.
lot.
Okay. Okay, Subhadip. Yeah.
I do them quite. I can share something from a screen.
Yeah, please.
An image. Let me see. Just hold on. Can you see?
Yes, we can see your flicker.
Yeah.
I think Sayan mentioned about this image.
So this is a focal length blend.
Right.
So where we were on a hike in the Singalila trek, and this is a campsite early in the morning, where I had a small stream in front of me, but the peak was pretty far away. So
Right.
when I'm standing there, I can experience both the water at my feet and the glow and the sunrise on the mountain. But when I take the photograph, it doesn't work out. Either I use a tele, I capture only the mountain, or if I use a wide to get everything together, then the mountain becomes minuscule. So this is more like portraying a feeling. This is where like photography becomes digital art, fine art, goes into the realm of painting, that sort of thing. So this does not hamper reality. The cascade is there, the mountain is there. Only that perceptive difference between them has been compressed
Right.
by using focal length. Well, normally whenever you use a longer focal length or any other focal length, we are changing reality. So here we are changing reality by using a technique, post-processing technique. But not changing reality, we are presenting reality in our own style. Just that.
If I can just interrupt and hope I'm not singing anymore.
Oh, you are still breaking up, Sayan. Sayan. Hello.
Am I audible or am I not?
You are audible slightly.
You are audible, but your voice is also breaking up. And I can't
Better
see.
now?
It's fine, but I can't see your video properly. Your video
I
has
shifted.
your video has frozen. Probably you can just stop the. Okay, fan is gone.
I think
So
there's an issue with Cheyenne.
yeah. Actually, the other day also there was quite a bit of network issues. The day when I was doing a one-on-one session with him on Instagram. So Sanak bhai, what is your take on like focal length blending and how do you go about it?
See, since I am having a D850, I have the liberty to do perspective wrap. I have not tried focal length blending yet. I was supposed to try that in my Patagonia trip, which got cancelled because of this COVID-19 issue. I wanted to try focal length blending in that trip with the Fitzroy, but unfortunately didn't happen. So I have to wait for some more time. I normally go for a perspective wrap because with the 850 with the 850 sensor I have tried to do a perspective wrap and make big prints. Big print means 2436 up to
How does
that
that
print.
work, Sanak? This perspective thing you're talking about?
You can check yesterday Ted was telling he was showing focal length, sorry. Perspective wrap, yeah, I can show you with now live with one example how it works. You can easily do that. There is a tool, perspective wrap tool. You can do that. With that one, you can really enlarge the size. Let me show you that.
Yeah.
Suppose with any one image.
Every day you learn new things. Good.
Yeah. So the best part of this lockdown.
Suppose this image. You can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yes, Sanak.
Yeah, not this image. I will open. Okay, suppose you can see this the houses on the left. You can see the houses, right? These were very small. I have increased the size.
Okay, basically by that warp thing and all.
Warp tool, yeah. So basically, what I do is
okay, you've got a high resolution, so okay, I got it.
I can play with that. So just drag it, and it will give you it will increase the size.
Yeah. No, I got it. You are saying you've got a high D50. Now I could relate because that.
Yes, because you can the pixels which gets eaten up, you can really not that much. You can still continue.
Lose much detail. Got it.
Yeah.
Right. Could you show it to us? Because Subhadip got it, but others won't get it. Yeah.
Okay.
Am I audible, Himadrida?
Yes,
right,
you are.
I will show you with another example. Suppose 1 minute. Okay. Suppose
I'll
this
just
image.
add on to the point I wanted to make. Shonokda, one thing.
Yes.
I'll just add on to one point which I wanted to make when both Shubhadip told about the mountain and you shared about the size of the houses. Right. This is a very this is a more natural depiction of the place, because when you're shooting with a wide angle, you're actually seeing the houses in a larger shape than you are actually capturing in your camera, because the wide angle compression factor is compressing the entire scene into a very shortened and small Lilliput kind of a way. And when you are actually increasing, like when Shubhadip is increasing the size of the mountain, or you are increasing the size of the houses, you are actually projecting the place in a much truer way.
Yeah, this is more reality, actually.
Yeah, because what Shubhadip does, I'll just take 1 second to go back to that. That kind of focal length blending and that kind of expertise, I believe very, very, very few people will be able to do in the country. Like that
exactly. I have never tried.
Simple.
I would love to try that actually.
It looks so simple on screen, but trust me, that is not at all something very simple to do. And,
so basically, Shubhadip, you don't move your camera, right? It has to be in the same place.
No. In the not necessarily.
I think you find a common place where you can merge the enlarged shot onto the normal, the wide angle.
You have to find a plane where you can merge the wide foreground
preferably,
with that.
Preferably if it's a darker portion of the frame.
Yeah, or if something with pattern, like grass and all.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So you can continue. Yeah.
I think it's not long.
Shonam, you can continue with your warping thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Suppose just want to show quickly what I am talking about. Suppose this image, is it you can view this?
Can't see any image. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I see now. I see now. I see now. Yeah, I see now.
Yeah. Suppose just you want to increase the height of these hills, so you make a layer, and then you you select this part. Suppose you want to heighten this area only. Then you press Ctrl T. With Ctrl T, you will get this icon here, the warp tool here. You just press here, and then you can drag and give the shape that you want. Okay.
And then you need to brush out the edges so that the
Absolutely right. So just press, and then you have a layer, background layer. You just go there and mask out the edges.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Beautiful.
So this is a very good trick to give more.
But if Sanak gives away all these tips here, how will people sell their tutorials?
We are totally committed towards and he totally is towards improving the standard of landscapes and such things in India.
Just I'm showing just you can see the difference now. This was before and this is after. Just quick difference I'm showing you. Okay. Right. I'm done.
Yeah. Sanak, if you could stop your screen sharing.
I will stop. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is basically what Ted showed us yesterday, but he did it with, or Ole Henrik showed us the other day. He did it with on the camera itself. He took two shots, one on 14 mm and one on 35 or 24 mm, and then he overlaid both of them, and then he masked it out. And then because there is a higher resolution and it is possible with D850, so Sanak did the same thing, tweaked it a bit differently. So, but the
right.
basic understanding is the same. So,
right.
coming to the processing part, yes, we have understood what Subhadip and Sanak has mentioned already. How they think about applying long exposures to creating images in a certain manner. So what is the thought process behind? Because each image will take a different idea or take a different thought process to process it, right? So what are your thought processes behind processing images in a certain way? Say, for example, if you are processing a dark image like after twilight or twilight image, then the thought process will be different. And if you are processing a daylight image, then the thought process will be different, right? So let's go off with, let's start with Sanak, and then we can come back to Subhadip. So what is it and how do you plan it? How do you think about it?
To be honest, there is not much thinking goes in with me when I'm shooting. The most important part is for me to reach the right vantage points. There are so many times that I go out with my camera, but I don't shoot. I just roam around with my car to locate vantage points. As you saw with my presentation, I am very particular about what type of composition I'm shooting. So I have less of emotional connection, but more of technical connection. If you see that, if you see my images, I try to get more into. I try to shoot with perfection more rather than getting emotionally connected. But definitely, I believe that the time that when you are shooting, the mood that you want to portray in your images has to do with the mood that you are having that time when you are shooting. It's very important. That connection is very important. For example, if you see most of my images in urban landscapes, I am very comfortable shooting in the blue hour, because definitely blue is a color. Yeah, there is a direct connection with the colors that you incorporate in your frames. So blue is one of my favorite colors, that because it's a symbol of peace, calmness, and serene. So I love to get to incorporate peaceness in my frames. I want to portray tranquility in my frames. So definitely blue hour really is one of my favorite time of the day to shoot urban landscapes. Apart from the technical part, if I answer, blue hour really stands out differently to me when it comes to shooting urban landscapes. And yes, there are times when I also get carried away seeing the drama of nature. I remember in Slovenia, while shooting the fantastic sunrise over Lake Bled, that was one of my memorable moment. I actually stopped shooting and I visualized the scene with for a few minutes, and then I started to shoot again. So if you ask me this question, I am not so much emotionally connected, but yes, there are times when I get connected, and this is it. This is my take on connection with nature while shooting landscapes.
Subhadip.
Yes, just a moment. I'm just looking for one image. Just give me a minute. Not a few seconds, basically.
Yeah. While Subhadip takes us to that image, Sanak, could you talk us through your Newtown image? Avik Banerjee has asked you a question. Can you show us?
Newtown image. Let me check if I can find it. I will show.
Yeah, where you
I
took
don't
it
know.
and how did you get that image? That is one.
Actually, this was taken from the. Oh, okay, I think Shubhodip is ready with the answer. By
Yeah,
that time, I will.
Subhadip, off to you.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Sanak can
fought with
get ready with his image.
he fought with the guard to take that image. He was almost put
Yeah.
in the building.
So I'll come to using long exposures. I'll just share a couple of images. So you can see this image, I presume.
Right.
Yeah.
So while this was again during the single trek, we had climbed for 3-4 days, and we reached a camping site. The evening, this is the first time we got the grand view of the Kanchenjunga. And that evening, suddenly, when the sun was setting, clouds rushed in. And now here I had to make a decision whether to pop in my ND filter and take a long exposure with the clouds melting away to mist, or to go for a shorter exposure. So the thought that went in my mind was, suppose if I put in the ND filter and the cloud movement in such a way that I wasted up with the shot. And this is the only opportunity I would have got, because next morning we are supposed to move away from there. So I'll miss this moment. So here I decided not to go for a long exposure shot. I forgot exactly, I put it somewhere in between. Like not too long for the clouds to move across the image, which might have if you see the clouds on the left side, they might have moved in such a way they would have obscured the light on the peak. That is possible. So here I decided not to take a long exposure shot. And if you see, there's slight movement in the clouds because it's slight stretched out exposure, but not so as long as to totally mess up what I wanted to take. But in this scene, if you see, I used a long exposure. The clouds have totally streaked over. Here my advantage was, I was staying there. I had access to the peak the next morning, the next evening, and maybe the morning after. So I knew I can experiment here. I can try for a long exposure. If it works out good. If not, I can take my chances next morning or the next evening. So here I tried a long exposure. Luckily, like the loop with the clouds went fast across the sky, and there's a red intense light happening on the peaks while I was standing in deep shadow. So overall, I like the feel and look. So basically, I react to whether to take a long exposure or not by thinking of the situation I'm in. Some situation I might opt for a long exposure, some situations I might not.
Very good point.
My 2 bits about that.
This was from Falud, Shobhadip da?
Which one? No. This is from not from Falud. This is from some place called Kalijhad.
Okay.
This is the closest we were to Kanchenjunga on the single letter.
Okay. The other one?
This is from Choudhury in Uttarakhand.
Okay.
This is the Nanda Devi in the back.
Okay. Right. Amazing.
So basically, when to take, when not to take is optional. Like one has to think about it. The situation dictates is basically. It is possible to take. Sometimes long exposure give this extra element.
Right.
But while going for a long exposure, one might miss out on a normal decent shot. So one is to take. What do you tell?
I would like to ask one quick question to both of you. I would want to have your opinions regarding this. When we are shooting waterfalls, one of the primary things that really make the life of landscape photographers very difficult is water misting, like the water spray. Like it becomes a really unmanageable job at times to try and keep the mist or the water spray away from your camera. More so if you're using an ND filter, then even after wiping off sometimes it generally keeps staying back because the condensation has started happening. So how do you tackle and what are your approaches towards tackling that big problem of water spray, and how do you deal with it basically in your own ways?
See, I will go for basically these days the filters I am using, they have got some sort of nano coating, so where water does not stick.
Okay.
So I always carry this lint-free cloth in my pocket, and a small wipe takes it away. It does not stick to the lens. That's the advantage of one of the newer filters. You've got some
these filters are water repellent. You're right. So especially you are using Nisi filters. These are water repellent, and you keep a fiber cloth, the one you use to clean specs. Always keep that in your pocket. So just if you touch the filter, it will soak the water. Don't rub it. That's a mistake you do. If you rub, you will get the condensed effect in the filters, whole filter. Okay. So better just to either carry a fiber cloth, or I carry sometimes tissue paper with me. Yeah, so just try to absorb the water. Just to place the tissue, it absorbs the water. But just again,
dab it onto the
right. So in that way, it works very well.
With these newer filters, not much of an issue. Earlier, I used to face quite a lot.
Yes.
With these newer filters, it does not stick on too much.
Issue will come, Subhadip, if you start rubbing. If you want to clean it, then the issue will start. The filter gets condensed, and it will also take a toll on the elements in the filter, the front element.
I've only faced it one time. Maybe the water spray was too high because even I was using a Hoas Solas ND. It's a very good filter. Like it has the coating and all, but I was actually under a waterfall, you can say. So maybe the mist in the air was so much that as soon as I
the volume of water will also depend.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. But if the water attacks the lens, the spray attacks the lens faster than you can clean it, then obviously.
If you remember my image where there is the sky and the water is falling from above, from Iceland. That was horrendous. Yeah, that was horrendous. Like the water spray over there was horrendous. Like made life totally difficult.
So let us take up a few questions from YouTube. Shayan, if you can help me out. I'll go up first. This thing.
I have a very choppy connection. My video itself is.
It seems I have lost the previous questions, but there was a question on does proximity to nature or does proximity to beautiful scenic place make you a landscape photographer? Because a lot of landscape photographers, they stay close to beautiful locations, but everyone staying close to a beautiful location is not necessarily a landscape photographer.
No, like we saw on that thing with Ted's and everybody's talk, the Pacific Northwest, they stay in a beautiful place. All of them are landscape photographers.
Right.
So it definitely influences you. You get proper access. Nature influences you.
But
If you stay in a dusty, grimy town, chances are more that you'll become a street photographer.
Yeah, but then Alex was from Midwest, and then he went
moved on. That's
yeah,
why.
he moved on. But then there, according to him, there wasn't any landscape or scenic landscapes to influence him, right? But yet he was influenced or he was attracted towards landscapes.
That is there.
So my question is, so does that have a primary role or it's all in the mind?
No, role is there. Role is there. Had I not stayed in a place where it takes me just 1.5 hours drive to get to a scenic location, where I can like fulfill my urge to shoot landscapes.
Right.
Right.
So that creative outlet is there.
Shom has asked something and said something about Subhadip, and I would like to comment.
Shan, the question is not yet over. Sanak is yet to answer it.
Okay.
What does Sanak feel?
Definitely, I agree with Subhadip. Means it has to do with the place you are staying. If you see my example myself, since I stay in such a place where nature is at its best, you find all the components here, and I am staying just beside the coastal area. So it really pushed me to shoot the coastal areas, the seascapes, and it has to do with the place where you are staying, and you get attached eventually if you love shooting.
Right. Yeah, Shine, go ahead.
Yeah, Shom says to Shubhadip, my personal takeaway from Shubhadip's images is always that of a man in deep emotional connection with the visual in front of him. It's almost transcendental. So what will be your answer to that? Like, do you agree, or like would you like to add something to that? The emotional connection?
Oh my God. I go by visual feel. Like, I don't think, and if I analyze later, I go by feel first. So if a scene attracts me, it looks good to me, I go ahead with it. The analysis comes later. Not lesser of a scientific brain, maybe. That thing.
Okay.
Right.
And to Shonukda, somebody asked if you do conduct workshops, and if you do, how do we come to know? So if you would you like to tell them something that I guess if they can follow your pages, then they'll be notified when they do that, right?
Yeah, definitely. I have been. I think I spoke to you also about once this workshop.
Yeah.
And there are so many queries coming in, and I have to do this now sooner or later because of this COVID-19. I was planning this June, but definitely it will come up very soon. Means I have to conduct because it's not only him. There are so many queries that I get to conduct one workshop, and definitely it will be notified either in my Facebook and Insta handles.
Yeah, just follow them on Instagram, and I guess you'll be notified in time. Because most people over here, they really can't afford, and we really can't afford the tutorials or the workshops that the legends out there conduct.
Right.
So we have so knowledgeable people over here like you and Subhadip, and I guess whenever you're conducting such workshops, all of us can benefit from hearing to that and looking into your views regarding photography and how you do your stuff. Like that will be really nice for all people listening now.
Right. So, Shine, do you have any questions for Sanak or Subhadip? Anything specific?
One quick question to Shanokda would be which I personally feel. How do you I have noticed personally in my limited experience that you handle highlights really well. The way you handle highlights is brilliant because as I say, midtones are your friend, shadows and highlights are not. So you have to make you have to befriend them. So how do you it will be a two-stop question perhaps. One would be, how do you treat artificial light and a natural light differently? I think you do. If you do,
yes.
If you do, then how? And the second part to that question will be, what is your specific approach towards highlights, and if there are any tips for budding photographers to understand from?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Shayan, when you are shooting urban landscapes, definitely you have to learn exposure blending, the art of exposure blending. That is very important. And for controlling the highlights, you have to decide how much highlights you would like to incorporate in your frame. I mean, when you are blending, one shot will be, of course, over blown out highlights, and one will be without highlights, means less highlights. And so you have to I do manual blending specifically. I because Daniel Chiang also do manual blending. I control my highlights with my brush size and the brush opacity. It's very simple trick, but time consuming. Means you have to just I work on layers, and according to the brush size and the opacity, I control the highlights. Another thing that I do, that I will show you here, I don't mind showing the trick. I'll just show you one specific part, but this you have to get the Tony Kuiper luminosity mask. If you're using that, you can very easily control the highlights. Suppose for this, I have to mail you this photo. You have asked me to. I promised you to. I promised you to. I promised you to give this photo in high resolution.
Yeah,
Can you
this
see the
is,
share?
yeah, it's half in the screen, not in the full screen. Yeah, now we can. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
supposed to ask you questions
I
about.
was coming to this actually. I was leading to this.
Yeah. So basically, there is if you have Tony Cooper TK action panel, you create a mask with lights.
Okay.
It will show 10. Keep it 10 by default, and it will create mask. You can see it is creating mask on the right side. You can see that. So now you have to balance, because this TK action mask are such amazing thing. You can really control your highlights with this one. Now watch closely. If I click the topmost blue icon, see how the highlights are reducing. You can see that.
Yeah, right.
And the yellow ones will incorporate highlights in your frames. Suppose if I press the top one, it will incorporate highlights more in your frame. You can see that.
Yeah.
So basically, I balance between the intensity of the highlights by playing with this mask.
These masks all come up in layers, right? And you are like
Exactly.
the opacity of each layer differently.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can create, and this is the fine tuning that you can do.
Right.
The other thing I use is I love to use the pro contrast in CP. That's very important if you want to create a good city, urban landscapes images.
Nice. So
Because highlights is all about luminosity and color together, right?
Right.
Most often people will get either the brightness, not the color, or the color and not the brightness. So
Very good question. Very good point, Shayan. That's why you have to do. This is my last final retouching. That the one I showed you. That's the final part I do to correct my highlights, my exposure balancing.
it's
But
beautiful.
the most important part goes on before, because as you mentioned, if you don't understand the difference between color and color highlights and luminosity highlights, then again you will make a mess of that.
Absolutely.
So you have to blend it properly for the final image, and then you can these luminosities are not playing with your colors, by the way. It is just playing with your luminosities.
Absolutely.
If you want to create a balanced exposure, so you have to blend it well before you come and give this final retouching.
You have to retain the color basically before you get
Absolutely. And I have to mail you this photo. I forgot.
Yeah, please.
Do that.
yeah, if I may share my screen, I have the image about which I was thinking of asking. You've already spoken about that. So I have a question for Subhadip da.
Yes.
We've been to this place so many times. Like me, I have personally been to this place like 6-7 times. So just tell us like how many attempts did it take to get such kind of an image? How many times did you go there, or how long did you wait for such kind of an image, or what?
Which image are you talking about?
This image which I'm
I
showing
guess the
on my
waterfall.
screen.
I'm not.
The first one, Shubhadip, I believe.
I'm not getting a specific image.
The first one, I believe.
So I think you are viewing on YouTube. That is why I have already opened it on the screen.
I'll just check.
It's not open, Madhida. It's just, you're just highlighting the, like, it's not open over here.
You have not opened. It's just highlighting it.
Yeah. The first image with the warm light. And
Got it.
It hasn't come. Just a minute. Can you see it now?
No. It's opened somewhere else, which you have.
No, it's not.
You have to share.
Just a second. What I'll do is I'll have to share this screen. Okay. Now can you see it?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This no, I've been lucky enough. Like I've been very lucky enough with light. So this is during my first visit to this falls.
Okay, the first visit itself.
Yeah, the first visit is I was wondering what to do, and then suddenly I shot a sequence of images.
Right.
And for one brief moment, the light happened.
Right.
And luckily, I was shooting a sequence. In that sequence, that light got captured.
Right.
So the images before this are without any there is no play of contrast of light and shade. The images after this in the sequence, again the same thing.
That's what happens.
Yeah. So I was very lucky to shoot a sequence. So and I had used a 10-stop. I wanted the dreamy water feel. So I used a 10-stop, and luckily the light happened at the right time.
Right. Because I have been to this location like 6-7 times, but in not even one instance I have had this kind of light.
Yeah. So basically that day the light god was.
Did you go with Subhadip?
Oh yeah. Next time I'm definitely going in with Subhadip and Rajan.
Yeah, make it a point.
I've been unlucky also with light many times.
Right.
I've got thousands of rejects. This is one of the.
This is pre-sunset, I believe, Shubhadip.
Yeah, this is sunset.
Yeah.
Sunset, okay.
A little before sunset, I suppose.
A little before sunset, the sun had not been there. The
These
reddish tone is there in there.
Yeah. These bursts generally just last for a couple of seconds at most.
There's cloud cover, and time the cloud moved away, and through the clouds I get a shaft of light.
The current image I'm processing is very.
That's the fun of landscape photography, na?
Yeah.
Right.
You get lucky a few times.
Absolutely. You don't get lucky. You make it a point to reach there, Shubhadip. It's not. You have to go there.
There are more disappointments, but when it happens, you are elated.
Your eyes have lit up. I like that.
Yeah, happens. So we are already nearing 2.5 hours. So what we'll do is we'll try to wrap up in a few minutes with me asking both of you for advice to the newcomers.
Himantu, there was a question here.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, I can answer that. Subhadip, yourself in waterfall zone. So important practical tips for shooting waterfalls.
Right. Please go ahead.
The first thing I'll say for anybody who's shooting waterfalls, especially in Meghalaya, carry a pair of socks with you.
Yeah.
Say why? Because all the stones in the streams are mossy. And to get a good composition, you have to basically work yourself midstream or stand on a dicey rock. So if you wear, what this is, you wear 2 pairs of socks and you walk over these rocks, you don't slip. So that's a practical tip.
Awesome.
So which has helped me. to reach a certain location in midstream or something, which works. And what else? This is a practical tip. Ask for practical tips. And second, always carry those lens cleaning clothes with you to tackle the mist. Best way out is you compose. You cover your camera with a cloth or something. Get everything ready, and then for that moment to remove that cover, and then you shoot.
Right.
So that way that you reduce the chance of visit. Time consuming, but you can do it. I've seen Debra Chakraborty doing that.
Yeah. Even I have picked up that trick from I don't know whom. Probably
I carry
from you.
that shower cap with me. What I do is I put the shower cap in front of the front element, and my basic composition I frame it through the shower cap. So there is water falling. My shower cap gives me transparency, and then once everything is ready, I take it out and then shoot.
I did something similar with a plastic bag in Iceland this thing.
It helps.
Yeah, it really helps. Pre-compose through something translucent and then pull it off. Yeah.
Yeah. So your advice to the newcomers or those who want to get into landscapes and long exposures seriously?
That's what Sanak gave at the end of his practice presentation. Practice.
Yeah, practice is there. Practice is the first and foremost thing. But to build it up, like how do you build it up?
You have to understand the importance of light and shade, how it creates depth in a landscape, all those things. It comes with practice, I've seen it. It's slowly
technicalities,
build up
and also I feel
see others work.
Yeah, I feel patience is also pretty important.
Patience is very important.
Yeah.
Experiment.
You see other people's photographs sometimes in a location that keeps on the back of your mind, and then you work towards that.
Right.
Like next time, if I'm faced with dunes and a good sky behind, Sanak's images of dunes will come to mind. So that will influence my thought.
Right.
So those things are there.
Sanak, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, same thoughts here. Basically, means you have to spend time, and only thing to add is if you're into landscape photography, respect nature. Don't abuse nature. Don't go and litter the place. Try to keep it clean, because in Ladakh the scenes are very scary for me. When I went to Nubra last time, I can see empty beer bottles everywhere scattered. So just try to respect nature, and if try to give back nature for the visuals that nature is offering to you. It's very important to do that, and we definitely will come up with good photographs, but try to respect and preserve nature as it is.
Right. So with that, we have come to an end of this presentation. Thank you so much, Subhadip. Thank you so much, Sanak. Thank you so much, Sayan, for being here with me, helping me out.
Yeah, and we should thank Sanak the most for his wonderful presentation.
Amazing.
So many things. Honor for me to share the place with you. I always look up to your images, and I plan to come to Meghalaya sooner or later to shoot those amazing waterfalls. I'm yet to shoot those waterfalls. I don't know when it can happen, but definitely want to meet up all of you. And all of you are such a noble soul and so grounded. That's what makes the connection more fruitful to us.
Thank you so much. So
thank you, absolutely.
We'll meet again in some other live webinar or some other live session going on live somewhere else till this lockdown is over. And the moment this lockdown is over,
hopefully we can, whatever we have learned through all these sessions, hopefully COVID gives us scope to go outside and shoot.
Right.
Now we are loaded with information, and we are loaded with ideas, and we are loaded with
the shutter finger is itching.
Yeah. It is totally.
I'm finding no difference.
So now COVID willing.
Yeah.
And we want to see Bhadoi landscapes.
No, I shoot once in 18 months, so I'm absolutely fine.
So we are waiting to see Bhadoi landscapes.
There's nothing in Bhadoi. You can see the choppy connection I have. My power has not been there for the last 2 hours. It's fine.
See, the moment he mentioned choppy, his connection became choppy.
Yes.
So yeah. So with that, we are ending this presentation. Thank you all the audience. Thank you for giving us the support. There are still about 30 people in line. It's already 11:30, and thank you all for joining in. Thank you all for your questions. I'll be coming back with other sessions on wildlife photography, on on prints, like photo prints and all. I'm already talking with Subhadip in relation to that. So we'll keep on announcing these sessions, and hope you can join us back as and when possible. Thanks. With that, I'm ending this presentation. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
It was amazing. Bye bye.